Okay, everyone, we have a quorum, so we're going to go ahead and get started. First, let's do roll call.
Okay, Councilmember Willard? Here. Councilmember Harris?
Here.
Councilmember McCarron?
Here.
All right, thank you. You have a quorum.
Perfect. And we'll do approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion?
I'll move.
Seconded by Councilmember Willard. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Perfect. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here today or watching at home, as Councilmember Green always likes to tell us, the millions watching. I'm excited to be sharing my first climate committee today and to share updates with you all about one of the most transformative projects for clean energy in our city, Community Solar. We have a short presentation as a refresher on how we got here, but I want to, and the specific reason we're here today, but I want to highlight a few major points about this program. Community solar is the best way to provide access to cheaper, clean, locally produced power to New Orleanians who are either renters, do not want solar on their roof, or simply can't afford the investment. Since creating this program, City Council has created incredible momentum by designing a program that is unleashing more than 60 megawatts of projects, worth more than $75 million of investment in New Orleans property, and will provide thousands of people with an opportunity to lower their energy bills permanently. Community solar subscribers will benefit from cheap, clean energy produced at these facilities and get credits on their bills. And in an era of rising costs and creating an affordability crisis, this is one of the best ways to lower electric bills by signing up. I'm also excited to say that one of the major projects from Together New Orleans will be breaking ground on Monday, March 23rd, with others soon to follow. This docket, along with consolidated billing and the neighborhood power plan docket currently in the 30-day comment period, are game changers for our city and its residents, and I'm looking forward to ensuring these and other programs move forward quickly and safely. So with that, I'm going to ask Razan from my team to go ahead and down to the table, and she will provide a presentation followed by Entergy, and then we have a resolution, and then we'll have Commissioner Devontae Lewis from the PSC present to us.
Can you guys hear me fine? Good afternoon, council members. My name is Razan Badr, and I am council member Amy McCarron's Director of Community Engagement and staffer for the Climate Committee. Bring this closer. Today, I'm here to talk about Community Solar and to give a general overview of the program. So what is Community Solar? The purpose of this program is to deliver bill savings. It's designed to expand clean energy and help lower energy costs, especially for low-income households. This project builds small solar farms that generate solar energy for the city, and then that energy goes into the Entergy New Orleans grid, and customers who subscribe receive credits on their monthly bill based on the solar power that their portion produces. So the way that this works is that each developer goes out in the community, they find their subscribers, and they can either be residents or commercial businesses. And then these subscribers pay a monthly subscription fee in return for solar energy and savings on their bills. So for example, let's say that my subscription to a solar panel, let's just say it's $50, and then my portion produces me $100 worth of electricity, then that means I get a $50 reduction on my utility bill with net crediting in place. I'm just throwing these numbers at you as an example. The subscriptions vary by developer and depends on several factors. So why do we need community solar? We need it to help lower costs for families in New Orleans who are severely energy burdened, those families in the lowest income bracket who spend on average 20% of their income on utility bills. Many of these families cannot install traditional rooftop solars like you see here on this picture, This is a pathway to address rising electricity rates. This is electricity that is not dependent on fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are volatile and prices fluctuate. Community solar is great because you don't need to own your own house, you don't have to have a new roof, or bear the financial burden of buying and installing panels. As long as you can pay the monthly subscription fee, you're good, which will always be covered by your energy savings. So, what is the scale of this program? This isn't just a program to help a few households and businesses. This is a very significant program that, if it is taken to completion, will represent a massive change in our energy portfolio as a city. Let's take a look at the numbers. So, the community solar program authorized up to 60 megawatts of solar capacity. That's a huge bundle of energy. 60 megawatts can support about 6,000 to 7,800 homes, residential subscribers. Just want to put out a disclaimer that this is just an estimate of residential households served only. This number is going to look different with commercial businesses subscribers buying more than one panel, but I just chose this number because I wanted you guys to see what this looks like. So if all of these projects are built, their capacity in aggregate will be about half the capacity of the New Orleans East power plants. So taking as a
Razan,
whole-
say that again.
Yes. If all these projects are built, the capacity will be about half the capacity of the New Orleans East power plant that the council approved in 2018. It's a huge amount. And taken as a whole, these projects will make up about 4.3% of Entergy's total generation portfolio as it stands today. So what does this mean? The generation portfolio is the total amount of electricity that Entergy generates. This project would be about 4.3% of all of the power Entergy has available. And when ranked against all of the New Orleans Entergy's power plants and contracts, this would be the 6th largest source of electricity that they rely on. So this is a fairly significant resource, and all of this would also be locally generated in New Orleans. I need to add that. So, what is the cost? What is the impact that people can expect? Every community solar generating facility has a different rate structure program, so a customer's benefit from participating in community solar depends on each facility. I want to note that there are two buckets of project. There's low income and then there's open. So a project would fall under the low income category if it serves at least 30% of low income households. And then there are open projects, which are open to anyone who wants to subscribe and participate. 50% of this entire 60 megawatt project is designated to the low income category. Again, I want to emphasize that the impact is huge. This is one of the most direct policy mechanisms to mitigate rising rates. When community solar works, the entire grid benefits. All right, so this is the current status. So all of these numbers I should have specified are in megawatts. So we're looking at 18 projects total. And so far, the only project that made it to the construction queue is the Sisters of the Holy Family project. There are 14 of them in the application queue and 3 on the wait list. Each individual project is capped at 5 megawatts, and both the construction queue and application queue are capped at 60 megawatts each. So if all of these projects are installed, this program can help about 6,000 to 7,800 people. And again, these numbers is just an estimate on residential subscribers, and it does not take into account commercial businesses. This application queue that's highlighted, this is the problem that we are trying to solve. Lots of projects are stuck for several reasons, the main one being the direct transfer trip requirement that Entergy will discuss right after my presentation. It's really important that we move these projects swiftly into the construction queue so that they can get built and start producing clean, reliable electricity for our grid and helping households and businesses reduce their electricity rates. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you, Razan. I just want to highlight that again, 6,000 to 7,800 homes will benefit from this. So with that, I will call up Entergy to the table. They have a short presentation to kind of talk about the very technical DTT issue that we are working on. Thank you.
Good morning, council members, or good afternoon, I should say. Courtney Nicholson, Regulatory Counsel, and I have here with me Keith Wood, Director of Resource Planning for Entergy New Orleans. And as Councilmember McCarron mentioned, we'll be talking today about this direct transfer trip protection component of Entergy standards as it relates to community solar interconnection. So I'll turn it over to Keith, and then we'll, of course, answer any questions that you guys have.
Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, council members. If we can go to the next slide, please. So the direct transfer trip, or DTT, is a protection that's contemplated under our distribution interconnection standards today. And this basically provides a way for us immediately to be able to disconnect large solar projects from the grid in the event that a fault occurs and those projects could continue to generate power that could damage the utility equipment. So all of the community solar projects that are in the queue so far, and any others that would come along later, would go through a number of different distribution reviews and studies to understand what their possible impacts could be to the distribution grid. And so through the course of these studies with the projects that are already in the queue, a number of them have already shown that certain types of upgrades would be required to make sure that if those projects are interconnected, that they would not potentially cause damage to the grid. And one of these measures in some of these cases is this DTT, the direct transfer trip. And usually this is the result of having more than 5 megawatts of capacity, generation capacity, on a given substation transformer. So in this case, we have a number of these projects that are bumping up against the 5 megawatt threshold that's set by the community solar rules. But in many cases, you would also already have other generation on those circuits from net metered solar at customer homes. And so the engineering studies look at the aggregate amount of generation that's on the circuit that could potentially get back to the transformer. So this DTT is going to make sure that almost immediately these systems would be able to be shut down in the event of a fault on the grid in the area around the solar project. And this would be to make sure that in the event of a fault, that if these systems were to continue generating, that power would not be able to flow back to the substation and damage any of the equipment back upstream, such as the arresters or the transformers, or potentially cause any injuries or safety risks to line workers who might be attempting to perform restoration in the area around the fault. So you mentioned the project, the Sisters of the Holy Family. That was the first project that entered our construction queue. And so, as we've had a number of discussions with the developers around that project, and the potential cost of the requirement to install a DTT, we, over the last number of months, we've been working with them as they have pursued a risk of islanding study through a third party to try to help determine if, in the specific circumstances of this first project, if a waiver to the DTT standard could be allowed. And in fact, we were able to allow the waiver in that case. If we can go on to the next slide. So based on those discussions, based on the information from that first risk of islanding study, and discussions with our standards group and our engineers, they have gone forward to engage a third-party firm to look at our existing standards and try to identify recommended adjustments for the parameters under which a DTT would be required with a project such as a community solar project. This is not a situation where we're going to say this is going to be a across-the-board waiver in the future of the requirement, but rather to reassess and revisit the parameters in place today to determine if they could be modified in a way to perhaps enable waivers in certain cases. And so what we've committed so far is that we're undergoing these studies with a third party, and we've committed to get back to all of the subscriber organizations and the council no later than mid-April with updated parameters that would give these developers the ability to review the updated parameters and have a better point of view on whether their projects as they're spec'd out look like they would be able to qualify for a waiver and make a decision about whether or not to move forward at that point. And then kind of in a parallel path, our engineers are working on actually making comprehensive updates to the standards, which would be completed a couple of months later. But understanding the timing constraints that a lot of these projects are working on with tax credit expirations and such, we've tried to find this interim step to provide an avenue for them. And these updates to the standards, this is not just an Energy New Orleans standard. This is the standard that is in place across all 5 of our operating companies throughout the 4 states that we serve. So when the engineers go through an exercise like this, they have to be sensitive to all of the, to this issue throughout the 5 operating companies. So I'll just wrap up by saying that we continue to want to work with subscriber organizations, looking at each of these projects as we come along and as we get through the process of rolling out these updated parameters, seeing where that leaves each of the projects that are currently in the queue and as they try to make decisions about moving forward. And that's all that I have at this point, unless y'all have any questions.
Great, thank you. I see Councilmember Willard. Anybody else? Okay. That is all. I do have one public comment on the presentation for Community Solar. Christopher Lang, you have 2 minutes, and it must be germane to this topic.
I see the live stream's working today. Is that true?
Yes.
So thanks for turning it on today.
We had a
instead of
problem
yesterday.
with our Cox cable subscription.
Okay. My name is Chris Lang. I live at 2500 Dauphine Street. I'm super excited about this community solar update. I think that everything that we can do as a city to be able to reduce our dependency on fossil fuels, to increase the affordability of renewable energy is in our best interest. So I applaud you for that, and I really hope to see this moving forward. But I think there's a lot more to be done around energy here. I was really curious, and I wanted to ask you about some of the updates related to other energy things within New Orleans that we've been working on, including the benchmarking progress, including the Solar for All program, including the municipal decarbonization. These are all updates that are in the energy portfolio, and I'm curious why this specific committee meeting, which is around sustainability and climate change, is really restricted strictly to energy, but if it is just to energy, why it's only restricted to this particular program and not all of them. You guys have had 2 months since January to be able to prepare for this inaugural Sustainability and Climate Change Committee meeting. We did ask specifically for updates on all of the ORS grants, ORS, which is the office which is most pertainable to this committee, and it was very just unfortunate, the response that I received from you, particularly Councilmember McCarron, that the person who was selected to be the director did not feel comfortable speaking on those updates, particularly given the time sensitivity of other grants and programs that need staff, that need program management, that will be lost if we don't have those people running them. So while I applaud you for this community solar, we have more to do around energy, around all forms of sustainability in the city, and we need to act and stop trying to restrict the public accountability process, which is council chambers. Thank you.
Thank you. Online comments for this specific? Just for
There's
the resolution.
no online comments for item 3.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, with that, we will move on to the resolution for community solar. Okay, this resolution is addressing the issue that we just spoke about, the community solar program, moving through Entergy Solar Facilities queue. So the council established the community solar rules in 2019 and has continued refining them to ensure the program is effective for residents, developers, and the electric grid. As the regulatory authority over utilities in New Orleans, it is our responsibility as council members to ensure that program requirements are clear, fair, and do not unnecessarily delay projects. Entergy New Orleans has identified that some of community solar projects may require the direct transfer trip, or DTT, a grid protection equipment used when distributed generation reaches certain capacity thresholds. Typically, when this requirement arises when the aggregate distributed energy resources on a substation exceed 5 megawatts, which Entergy just discussed. However, the application of this requirement is specific to projects currently under review by Entergy, and it's unclear which projects will ultimately be required to install this protection equipment. Installing a DTT can significantly increase project costs and may affect the feasibility and timeline of community solar developments. Several projects are already in the construction application queues, and uncertainty about this requirement could cause delays that are outside of the control of the subscriber organizations, the developers of these projects. As a result, the goal of this resolution is to protect the integrity of the community solar program while allowing Entergy the time needed to review and clarify its technical standards. Providing clear guidance will help developers plan these projects responsibly, control costs, and keep community solar moving forward for New Orleans residents. The council is emphasizing the importance of timely resolution so projects can continue processing without unnecessary disruption. This resolution strikes a practical balance. It gives Entergy the opportunity to clarify its requirements while ensuring the community solar projects are not unfairly delayed. As such, I urge my colleagues here to support this resolution so we can maintain our momentum in community solar and provide certainty to facility developers. Do we have, okay. Anybody from the dais have any questions about this resolution? Okay, perfect. So with that, we've got several comments on this. So we'll go Neil Morris, followed by Regina, and I can't read your writing, so sorry about the last name.
Hello, I'm Neil Morris. I live at 2420 St. Claude Avenue, and I'm here. I'm the executive director of Stay Ready NOLA, Inc. We're a 501c3 nonprofit that has 3 projects in the community solar queue. So perhaps as legislators, you're aware that there's more than one way to kill a project. You could vote no, or you could not vote no, and you could run out the clock on something. And so I want to be clear what's at stake here with the DTT and what's going on. President Trump killed the solar infrastructure tax credit, but he did it in a way where instead of sunsetting in 2028 or 29, it sunsets in 2026. So if you want to get the tax credit, which is the only way these projects are financed, then you have to start work by a certain date. That's July. If you haven't started work if you want to start work by a certain date, you have to have closed your financing. And so the cost associated, Entergy is way behind the curve here because other utilities are aware that, and what the risk of islanding studies that people have come up with is that there are other ways to address this other than multi-million-dollar impositions on a single community solar developer so Entergy can pay to harden their entire grid and run new fiber optic line and put it off on one developer. So they're behind the curve here. And so they have been accepting risk of islanding studies that show that it's not necessary. So if you don't think they're not aware that if a project hadn't closed financing or a project hadn't started by July, that it's killed, that's very naive to think that. And so I would encourage you to keep the pressure on Entergy New Orleans and to also make sure that they still accept risk of island and studies before their big review is done, because they know.
Thank you. Regina, followed by Natalie Jordy.
Hi, my name's Gina Lamacchia. Sorry, that's a tough one. So I'm the Director of Development at Green Coast. So we have 2 community solar sites in partnership with Working Power So they're an experienced solar developer, and they're based out of Philadelphia. We are developing 5 megawatts of community solar on NOLA public schools, so at Carver High School and at Abramson High School. And we're really excited to get under construction likely this summer. So I just want to thank you for your time and consideration as we work towards this burgeoning community solar development here in New Orleans, and we look forward to your continued support.
Thank you. Natalie Doherty?
Good afternoon, council members. Balance between the supply and demand for our power is one of the defining challenges of our time. And here in New Orleans, that means building out more clean, locally generated power. And one of the biggest factors in determining whether that happens is going to be how fast and expensive it is to connect new power to the grid. That's what today's change is helping to address. When we began working on the Sisters Community Solar Project, we discovered a requirement that would have forced the project to install a DTT, which would have added $1 million and 8 months to interconnect. That technology is not actually necessary, and so we ran a risk of islanding study to see if the equipment was actually required on our specific project. To Entergy's credit, their engineers took the study seriously, they reviewed the data with us, and they agreed that our project could safely move forward. That conversation has grown into a broader collaboration between developers, Entergy, and this council to reevaluate the standard itself so that future projects aren't forced to install costly equipment when it's not needed. We appreciate the leadership of Chair McCarron to move the timeline to update these standards from June to April. And this local effort to speed up interconnection will not just affect New Orleans, but the other Entergy territories as well, where community solar is not currently permitted, but where if it is one day, this will be helpful. The energy transition is not going to happen from the top down. It's going to happen from the bottom up through partnerships like this that remove barriers and help projects move faster. Thank you.
Thank you. Philip Magnum, and then Monica.
My name is Philip Mangum with Carpe Diem Developers. We currently have one 5 megawatt project, community solar project under development and active in the application queue. We'd like to state A, our support for this resolution, and B, our appreciation to Council Member McCarron's leadership on the issue. We'd also like to express our appreciation for Entergy for reevaluating and refining their existing standards and continuing to work with the subscriber organizations on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairwoman McCarron, members of the committee. My name is Monica Gerhardt. I'm Executive Director of Gulf States Renewable Energy Industries Association. We're a trade association of companies working in all parts of the renewable energy supply chain here in the Gulf Coast. So our members include the folks that are manufacturing some of the components that are going into these projects, the attorneys, accounting firms, all of the folks in the entire pipeline. And so we just welcome this opportunity to streamline red tape, update Entergy New Orleans standards to require DTT on site-specific conditions and not overall, only when it's necessary to help us meet our shared goals. And just echo the urgency that I heard from Entergy New Orleans and everyone else here in terms of speed and efficiencies and really ensuring that the companies are able to do business here very quickly. You heard a lot about the tax credits and refinancing in this cliff that we're facing, and so we appreciate your leadership.
Thank you. And then last, I have Jeff Canton. You were going to speak on item number 3, but I didn't have your card, so.
Thank you, Council, and thank you for taking up this issue. Jeff Canton with Solar Alternatives and also on the board of Gulf States Renewable Energy. I do want to thank the Council for taking up this specific matter with urgency, echo the words of most of our speakers so far, in that there's an incredible amount of federal funding that is at stake. We're supporting several of the projects in engineering and development, and the federal funding that is tied to this is obviously in a very short time frame. And there's already a lot of rules attached to this funding, so the more flexibility these projects have to have headroom to get them together is a great benefit. Also, just as part of the engineering on these projects, we've also recognized the outdated nature of the DTT for the requirements to keep these projects safe and functional on the grid. So it is very much appreciated that Entergy's been able to engage these studies and come to the same conclusion. So very much support this resolution and the urgency in moving it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have any online comments for this?
Yes, we have 2 online comments. The first comment is from Melissa Flemings. Comment reads, a recent article published by the Interstate Renewable Energy Council, IREC, holds some information worth considering here. Virginia regulators recently issued a major decision that makes permanent increased solar projects costs that will slow down clean energy growth in the state. On February 5th, 2026, the Virginia State Corporation Commission filed a decision that allows Dominion Energy to continue requiring an unnecessary and expensive grid protection system called Direct Transfer TRIP, DTT, for projects above 250 kilowatts, such as community solar projects and installation on schools, churches, and municipal buildings. Requiring DTT, which has an average cost of at least $300,000, often make these projects financially infeasible. A research paper published by IREC last year demonstrated that DTT is unnecessary for distributed clean energy projects. One of the key findings of the paper is that the probability of grid issues that DTT is designed to prevent is practically zero, occurring only once every 10,000 years. Such issues are so rare, in fact, that only 3 instances have ever been recorded globally, none resulting in any damage or harm to personnel or equipment. This seems pretty clear that to this issue, by way of logical governance, prioritizing big business interests over local sustainability solutions, the $5.3 million in EPA and nonprofit funds allocated to improve sustainability around waste management is being ignored to prioritize our local waste and landfill companies. Recycling is 100% a sustainability and climate change issue. Why is this EPA SWIFR grant not on the agenda? Piece by piece, asked Councilmember McCarron numerous times to put it on the agenda for this meeting, leaving me curious about the council members' sense of responsibility for genuinely equitable and sustainable solutions. Please reconsider. The second comment we have here is from Ryan Gregory with Stay Ready Solar 1 Inc. and Stay Ready Solar 2 Inc. Stay Ready Solar 1 and 2 are both projects that face significant impacts from ENO's DTT requirements. As of now, ENO is requiring DTT protection for both projects. If the cost of the DTT system comes in even on the low end of ENO's estimates, it is highly likely to cause significant challenges to project feasibility. If the cost comes in at the midpoint or high end of ENO's estimate, it will almost certainly be a deal killer. Additionally, the fact that ENO is not currently accepting ad hoc risk of island studies or considering deviations from DTT requirements on project-by-project basis means that projects like ours face significant challenges to our ability to have our projects underwritten by investors and lenders in a timely manner. Any delays imperils our ability to begin construction and claim electricity investment tax credits, which are crucial for project feasibility. On behalf of Stay Ready Solar 1 and Stay Ready Solar 2, I urge the committee to hold Entergy New Orleans to their deadlines and to ensure that decisions made around DTT is based on current real-world risks and best practices rather than outdated standards. And that's all of the comments under Agenda 4.
Thank you. And I know if there were any other comments that were not germane, they will still be posted to the agenda. Thank you.
Correct.
I do have one last item, one last speaker, Sophia Winston.
Thank you. As the former Energy Policy and Program Manager for the now defunct Office of Resilience and Sustainability, I commend the continued efforts to stand up a functional and competitive community solar program. But community solar is not the only solution to issues plaguing citizens of the city. Since the new administration has taken office, it seems from my perspective, as a former city employee and now as a private citizen, that the strategy is that there is no strategy at all, that there is just PR. Since this is the Climate Change and Sustainability Committee meeting, and since our new mayor campaigned on forward-thinking climate policies, I'd like to highlight some of the work that now sits in limbo. The former employees of ORS worked for years to stand up programs like a subsidized residential solar program, a building energy benchmarking program, which was a piece of legislation sponsored by former councilperson Helena Moreno, municipal decarbonization efforts, expanded recycling infrastructure and education, micro-mobility, expanded bike infrastructure, street safety, coastal restoration, tree planting, and more. Without a functional office, these programs will lose years of progress or disappear entirely. This is not an adequate solution for a city on the front lines of climate change. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I will make a motion to approve the resolution. Do you have a second? Councilmember Willard, all in favor? Great. All right, thank you. So this will be on the agenda tomorrow as well. Our last presentation is from the Louisiana Public Service Commission, Commissioner Devontae Lewis. If you want to come down to the table, please. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. I'm Devontae Lewis. I am the Louisiana Public Service Commission. I represent District 3, which includes 10 parishes along the Mississippi River, starting at East Baton Rouge, West Baton Rouge, and Emerville, portions of Ascension, all of St. James, all of St. John, the majority of St. Charles, portions of the West Bank of Jefferson, and the vast majority of this city of New Orleans, minus a few areas in Uptown and in Lakeview. And so it's a pleasure to join you here. As you know, the PSC regulates the utilities in the remaining of the states. We have 3 investor-owned utilities, Entergy Louisiana being the largest one. We also regulate 13 rural co-ops that exist across the state in various regions. And then we also we're also a part of, 2 regional transmission organizations, MISO, which includes Entergy New Orleans, and then SPP, the Southwest Power Pool, which is in the northwest portion of this state. I just want to kind of highlight some things that I've seen over my tenure when it comes to sustainability, climate, and resiliency. Louisiana has the highest per capita residential electricity consumption in the nation, even though we have one of the lowest rates of the nation. And so the work that this committee does, along with the work we do at the Louisiana Public Service Commission, I think is entirely important, not only for our sustainable future, but for an affordable future for the people of Louisiana and the people of the city of New Orleans. I think this is why the work that this committee has been doing on energy efficiency and DER, your docket, is extremely important. When we think about Louisiana, we have nearly twice the nation's average in carbon emissions. 77% of that comes from electricity, that comes from fossil fuels, and renewables contribute only 1% of our generation makeup in this state. Industrial users are big kind of power plants that we see, particularly in my district along the Mississippi River, makes up 73% of the total energy that is used in this state. And so when we are talking about a sustainable future, it's upon us that we have to inquire the biggest users of us all to be a part of the solution. And so we have a shared constituency, and I'm going to share some of the work that we are doing at the commission to further this goal. we have revamped our energy efficiency rules at the commission just past this year to make our program stronger and better for the people of Louisiana. And I think this is a place where this committee, along with the Public Service Commission, can work hand in hand to ensure that Entergy New Orleans energy efficiency program is at the same standards that we are holding Entergy Louisiana to promote electrification, to heat pumps, and provide the relief. Because not only does energy efficiency make our grid more sustainable, it also makes it affordable, because reducing capacity should be one of the most important goals that we do. The Commission has also recently approved an all-source procurement rule that requires purchase power agreements to be considered fairly. And so what we do when Entergy Louisiana or any utility wants to add generation, we typically require them to do a procurement, an RFP. And what we have now done at the Commission is require that they also look at purchasing power from independent power producers. So that could be independent solar facilities, battery storage, and present that information before the Commission as well. So we're evaluating the capacity buildup in a full contextual way, not just in a utility self-build way. We are also created a new sleeve purchase power agreement, so the big users can work with developers on their own to bring clean, cheap energy for themselves and for the state as a whole. And we're seeing more and more renewable projects each year, even though the pace of development is not where we want it to be. I mean, I think we've heard some of the complications that we're facing from the Trump administration, as well as the interconnection cost that it requires within MISO. And so those are conversations that my office is undergoing and working on to ensure that we do not hamper solar development, and particularly wind development that was talked about significantly in Louisiana before the Trump administration canceled 3 leases that we had in the Gulf of Mexico that were under procurement at the moment. So I want to say I also applaud the work that you all are doing on community solar. We have not gotten there at the Commission. I am continuously pushing, and so hopeful those members of Orleans who live outside of my district can help with the upcoming race in PSC 1 to send me a colleague that will vote to advance community solar, as I've been pushing for that over the 3 years that I've been on the Commission. And then I also want to say I applaud the mayor's plan to put solar on the 14 municipal buildings. I think commercial solar, community solar are a great avenue when we talk about electrification, when we talk about sustainability and requirements there. And so I just want to also offer that my office is here to be an ally, to be your voice, especially on statewide matters as it pertains to transmission, especially the transmission system here in New Orleans most likely comes from Entergy Louisiana, which is at the hands of the Louisiana Public Service Commission. And so I have here my policy director, Edward Yielding, who is a resident here in New Orleans and mans our office across the street at Benson Tower. And so we just wanted to be here, offer our support, answer your questions about work that's happening that pertains to you statewide, but then also just offer a real dialogue of continuing working relationship with this committee. I know majority of you are also on the Utilities Committee, and so that partnership there. I will tell you my commitment to sustainability is not just talking. I joined the Energy Resources and Environment Committee at the National Association of Utility Regulators Commissions, where I've been pushing resolutions around energy efficiency. I also serve as a member of the Electric Vehicle Task Force, looking at deployment of more electric vehicles and charging stations here across Louisiana, but across the nation. And then as well as an advisory member of the Electric School Bus Initiative, where I've been working with the school board, not only here in Orleans, but across, to get more electric school buses, because we know one of the biggest roles to decarbonize Louisiana is in our vehicle fleet. So the more that we can get cars that are not producing carbon emissions on our roads, the better our sustainability is for the future as a whole. And so, Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee, I entertain any of your questions.
Councilmember Harris.
Hi, thank you, Commissioner, for being here and for all your work. that you do. I know you had a town hall with about Delta Utilities, and I just wanted to ask you, what were the biggest takeaways from that town hall? What are you monitoring, and what should we be monitoring as their regulator?
Absolutely. I mean, Delta, as you all know, came to fruition in July of last year. And one of the challenges is that Delta, while it is now the largest gas provider in the state, is segmented. So it also acquired CenterPoint gas operations, which operated in North Louisiana around Shreveport and in South Louisiana around Lake Charles and Lafayette. Those two CenterPoint companies had two different kind of rate structures and tariffs. As well did Entergy Baton Rouge, which is now Delta Baton Rouge, and then now Entergy New Orleans, which is now Delta. So while Delta's one giant company, there are basically four balance sheets. And so I think that has been one of the things that we've been looking at to ensure that the accounting, the gas purchase agreements are all correct. One of the biggest challenges we have seen has been that gas purchase agreement, which is the cost of fuel, the weighted average cost of gas, which has been one of the biggest drivers that we have seen across bills, at least in my investigation in our office. And so what we have done at the commission is we typically do a fuel audit every 2 years. We have moved that up to 1 year, so we will do a fuel audit on Delta starting in July 1st, so we could have 1 full year of their gas purchases. Also encouraging them to be stronger at gas hedging, so potentially buying more off the market. But contextually, what we have seen is the cost of natural gas. And there are some direct consequences of policy that we are seeing. One, as you know, President Biden had a moratorium on LNG exports that President Trump uplifted and has now accelerated. And what we are seeing is what we are seeing as one of the major driver forces right now, about a 30% increase because of the exports that we are doing to Germany, to China, from the LNG facilities down in South Louisiana around Lake Charles. I would also say the demand for gas generation across the country has increased due to data centers, not particularly just here in Louisiana, but the concentration that we're seeing across the Northeast has been one of the major drivers, as well as the colder weather in general across the country. And so we have really been focusing on the gas purchase agreement. There's been a lot of concerns around their customer service, which we had a hearing just a few weeks ago with Tim Poche, the CEO of Delta, where we've pushed him around some improvements there. And one of the biggest things that we saw is a lot of people who were on levelized billing before did not know they were not re-enrolled in levelized billing after. I believe the statistic that was stated to us was when they purchased it from Entergy, about 38,000 customers were on levelized billing, and thus far to date, they only have 6,000. So there is a lot of shock around gas bills, but that's what we're looking at the commission. We're continuing those conversations. I will say that I do believe we will see some relief in the next billing period. The gas purchase agreement looks like to have about a 41% decrease for the month of March. And as we see today, it's hotter, so people are not utilizing their furnaces as much. So we should see a significant reduction in bills this month, but that will be something we should be looking at.
So so the pain point is not just here in New Orleans, you're seeing it in Baton Rouge, Shreveport, Lafayette as well.
Correct, and I will say one of the challenges that we look at is at the commission, and you go on our website, we track the gas purchase agreements for every gas utility that's under our regulatory jurisdiction. And what we have seen is Delta has not been out of the normal. Atmos Entergy, which is the second largest gas provider, has a GPA very close to them. And so I do think some of the complications was the changing of a new utility, Delta not having strong customer service and communication, but this higher gas purchase power is what we're seeing across gas utilities, no matter how big or small they are.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Councilmember Willard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Lewis, good to see you in City Council chambers. Couple of questions. So one, I did want to ask if the Delta bills that the people of New Orleans experienced for the past couple of months were sort of similar or fall in line with what other gas utility customers throughout Louisiana were facing, and it sounds like the answer to that is yes.
Yes, sir. Delta actually is a little bit cheaper than some of the other gas providers in the state. I mean, they vary. We have a little bit smaller ones like Pierre Part, South Coast Gas. But in terms of where Delta is to what I would call their peer, which would probably be Atmos, they are just on par on that gas purchase agreement, which is where, at least for my investigation, we have seen the biggest driver in cost. I do think that Delta made some choices that probably should have been communicated better on transparency of adjusting the way they distribute and displayed portions of their gas service charges and their research and development charge. But we're not seeing a difference. And so I track, of course, Delta New Orleans simply because the majority of those are also my constituents. But in terms of what we saw in Baton Rouge and New Orleans, the complaints are the same, the issues are the same, and we're seeing those spark also around the state in their other service territory areas.
But it's not just Delta, it's all the gas utilities essentially that operate in the state?
Correct. We're not seeing the complaints as much on the other gas operators, Councilman Willard, but we are seeing the same higher gas prices. And so I do think one of the challenges that we have faced is the residents in Baton Rouge and New Orleans had one utility bill. They had an electric combined gas bill. And so seeing your gas bill separately has brought a lot of questions on your consumption, on your charges, the kind of fluid nature of a gas bill that we know in the summer months, gas bills are relatively low, and your electric bill typically is higher. In the winter, it's a little bit of a reverse. Your gas bill becomes a little bit higher, your electric bill becomes lower. And so I think Delta kind of failed in their communications of explaining that, especially coming on in July with a prorated bill at the least use gas month. I gave a lot of impressions that gas bills would be $20, which is traditionally typical for the summer, but is not what you will see in December, January, and February of a gas company's operations.
Is there anything that you guys have implemented at the PSC level that would maybe protect the ratepayers a little bit more that we could look at setting up at the council level using our regulatory authority?
Yes, sir. One of the things that we've been engaged in is particularly around gas hedging. Looking at and to ensure that the utility is purchasing what needs to be. I mean, gas hedging kind of from a utility standpoint can be complicated because if they have the price too low, they just eat the remaining cost of that. But that's something that we've been talking about. I think going back into the energy efficiency program is really rebates around heat pumps. That is a significant area of where gas utilities really run high is without efficient heat pumps. And electrifying those from a typical gas operation can relieve people significantly of that. And one of the reasons I say that is because when Delta talked about weather, I think they didn't contextualize it correctly. It's not the fact that we faced snow or significant cold, but as we know here in New Orleans and across the state, our homes aren't fully weatherized. They are significantly older, and as that installation in the attic disappears, it means it takes a lot more energy to get your furnace or your water pump to the level of your satisfaction. And so that's what we are experiencing right now, is that a 10-degree difference is a lot of output to ensure that that water heater is producing what it needs to do. And so I think a solution, particularly looking in the energy efficiency rebates, our program is incentivizing more heat pumps as a tool to alleviate kind of that rapid cycle we see in gas bills.
Okay, so you talked about hedging. I mean, I have concerns right now, given diplomatic relations, the war in Iran, and we're already starting to see the price of gas go up. Do you think it's a good time for us to start working with Delta to issue sort of a formal hedging process portfolio?
Yes, sir. I think that, and I would also say Entergy New Orleans, because I think what we're going to see is, as we mentioned, the vast majority of the generation that our utilities use here in Louisiana is natural gas as well, gas generation. And so you will see that same type of pressure in the gas purchase agreement weighted the same way as Delta on electric bills potentially. And so I think as we move, it's not only about correcting Delta for the winter months, because as I said, we probably will start to see a sharp decline in gas bills this month and probably going in as we get warmer into spring and summer. But where that will come back will probably be on the electric bill side. So it's an issue that's facing both electric and gas utilities here in Louisiana.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Last question. Is there anything that you're aware of right now going on? State legislature convened session this week. Is there any bills that we should pay close attention to? Anything dealing with chemtrails or anything that we should be monitoring?
Well, I'll look outside. I think the chemtrails may be good, Councilman, but I think there are a few bills that my office has flagged of importance. I mean, particularly there is a bill around data center regulation and what that should be by Representative Schermerhorn. I think there are some good pieces in there. However, I will note that that bill probably more than likely is unconstitutional since it does creep into the Public Service Commission's jurisdiction. But at our commission meeting on Wednesday, I will have another directive to open a rulemaking around data center and customer protection. So I'm hopeful that my colleagues will advance this one. This is my, I think, fourth try at this data center regulation. So I think that's one of the most important ones that we've seen. I do know there is a bill filed by Representative Wright that would be a constitutional amendment to usurp your authority and send the utilities to the Public Service Commission. So that is something, of course, I think of direct importance of you as the autonomy for New Orleans as a utility regulator. But as far as that, that's all we saw. Thus far, there's not been significant challenges around solar that we saw last year or on wind development. So that's some good news. But as you know, there's still time to file some bills. So we'll see if somebody waits to the last second to drop something.
If they do, I'll go up there and oppose it like I did last year. Proud of the work that you're doing. Grateful to call you a friend. Keep it up. Hopefully we can have a strong relationship with your office on the PSC. Hopefully this election cycle brings you an ally or two. And if you ever need us, just reach out. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you so much, Councilman.
Councilmember Green.
Thank you, Commissioner, for coming today, and I appreciate the work that you do. I had on yesterday the second seminar that I've had relative to Delta Utilities, and there were representatives who presented. There have been multiple opportunities for members of the public to attend, such as recently at St. Roch Church and a couple of locations in District E. The question that we hear often is, why wasn't level billing something that Delta agreed to, knowing that customers had contracts with Entergy? I don't know if you can get to the specifics of why Delta didn't agree with it, but I think that the public should know, because what we've heard consistently is that the issue here is obviously the sudden increases, but that those increases could have been protected for people who are on fixed incomes if Delta and Entergy had also included in the sale the ability and also the desire to honor what is a contract with ratepayers. Could you comment on that issue? And as we look forward, if this ever happens again and there's a need to transfer any particular assets or maybe from Delta to someone else at the end of the day in terms of gas assets, is that something that is feasible to do? Is that something that we missed that we could make sure that we cover next time?
Absolutely, Councilman Green. I think one of the challenges was Delta took the approach of a re-opt-in instead of a opt-out program. So while they had all the information of who was on levelized billing when they purchased from Entergy, they only sent notification via mail and via email and gave them the options to re-enroll rather than saying you were enrolled in levelized billing. If you choose to leave levelized billing, please notify us now within this 60 days or 90 days and not be penalized. So I do think that was a failure on their part of kind of going with the opt-in, even though they had all the information, they had the data, they knew the service addresses. And so that's a conversation we did have with Delta, and I've been encouraging them to go a step further. Instead of doing individual outreach, go now and re-enroll all of the individuals that you knew were on levelized billing at the purchase sale, and then give them a time period if they want to opt out, rather than this consistent push that they're doing, which is only an opt-in provision, and requiring customers to call a customer service line or work on their website, which has had some challenges. And so I do think that is something that going forward, the commission and the city council, if there ever is another sale of any utility, requiring some of those customer provisions to be automatically rolled over rather than putting their burden and the onus on the customer to re-enroll themselves in the protections that they had set forth for themselves.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that response. And you know, I asked it in a certain way so that you could give that response and the public could hear it. But I also want to send a message to the folks from Delta Utilities. Thank you for participating. Thank you for being before the council. But that is a glaring omission, if you will, that really needs to be addressed. And it's a very simple way to address it. Do the calculations, make the service available to everyone, and let them opt out. It's as simple as that. I can't emphasize that enough, that some of the issues that we're hearing have to do with the fact that people on fixed incomes, people who were expecting a certain bill each month, in my opinion, were entitled to continue to receive those, because this was simply a transaction, but it was a transaction that should have respected the contracts that existed. I contend that there were contracts that should have been part, I know now after the fact, and we all know after the fact, but they had contracts with Entergy. They should have been honored by Delta. Maybe we can do something about that in the future, but I'm asking Delta to do something about it right now.
Yes, sir. I share your sentiment, and that's what we asked the CEO and the executive team at our February commission meeting when they came before for a hearing, and it's something that I continue to talk with Delta about. But not only just levelized billing, which I think has been their answer, but working on other solutions such as participating in energy efficiency. One of the things that we did at the commission that I think should be for considered of the council is we now mandate that our gas utilities, Entergy and Atmos, participate and have their own energy efficiency programs and run them to the commission standards that we hold the electric utilities on, because we know efficiency is one of the driving factors to reduce costs, at least in my opinion. And that is a way that we can help, especially when we know there are very limited dollars in weatherization and also very limited dollars in LAHEAP, which is something that I think is of interest and that I plan to help continue working with you on, is one, changing the funding formula for LAHEAP so Louisiana benefits. Right now, LAHEAP kind of benefits the New England states because it was kind of built more as heating assistance, and we kind of got the bulk of the cooling assistance, but as we know now, heating is also something extremely important to Louisiana, as well as working with Louisiana Housing Corporation to streamline the application process and coordination. One of the challenges, I think, is people have to go to various different areas for either weatherization dollars, for energy efficiency dollars, for the utilities' own assistance programs, and they're not all talking to each other. And I think an avenue before, especially on affordability, is finding a way of coordination so a constituent in need doesn't have to call 5 different offices to get help, that there is a one-stop shop or a way that data is shared, applications are universal, to bring relief. So I do think while levelized billing is one tool, I do think Delta and our utilities have a lot of other tools that they need to utilize to ensure, especially our seniors and low-income Louisianians and New Orleanians have the tools necessary to keep their utility on, but also keep it affordable for them.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that's a segue into just something that I'll conclude with. Tomorrow from 5 to 7 in my district at the Desire, Florida Multipurpose Center, Energy Smart is making a presentation. And you mentioned that those sort of programs exist to help our ratepayers, our residents. So I just want to report to the public through this meeting, and it has been advertised. It'll be advertised a little bit more. 5 to 7, Desire, Florida Multipurpose Center tomorrow. That's near Florida and what is Johnny Jackson Boulevard, 5 to 7, you can learn a lot about a program that has helped a lot of people. Thank you for introducing that.
Thank you, Councilman.
Okay.
Okay, the board is clear. Thank you so much for being here. I have a couple of public comments, and then I will just say a final few words. But, Morgan Clevenger?
Good afternoon, Council, Committee, Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Lewis, for being here. Regarding Delta, there's a lot of concerns, obviously, and I thank you for bringing up some of them. From the community standpoint, we have gas bills. I've seen one where 1 CFM of gas was used in a vacant unit for a gas water heater, which the cost of that was $1.30, but the bill is $42. So I think one of the biggest questions we need to ask is the fee structure over and above the cost of the gas. The fees themselves, are they commensurate with what we were paying comparing to energy before the sale? Where does it stand? So I think there's a lot of questions there. But I also I'm concerned, we're all concerned about Commissioner Lewis's highlighting the fact that our electricity is powered by natural gas as well. That's a huge concern because we're going to get it coming and going. I'm going to also advocate for our small homeowners because resilience and sustainability is about our roofs right now. It's urgent, it's scary, and our hurricane season is fast approaching. The legislature is working on insurance, but if we don't have the roofs, we have nothing to insure. We're not going to make it. A lot of us are not going to make it through another season. I'd also like to advocate very quickly for the Office of Resilience and Sustainability that seems to be in some type of disorganization. Many of us have worked with that office for several years regarding the Safe Streets Initiative that was about to get a huge grant to address the public safety issue of our streets. So I really would ask for that advocacy. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Lang?
Thank you all for your time, and thank you so much, Commissioner Lewis, for speaking on this important issue. I got the privilege to hear you speak at a Citizen Climate Lobby meeting conference several years ago, and I was really impressed by just the depth of knowledge you had and your commitment to frontline communities experiencing environmental racism from these manufacturing and industrial industries. And that's why I wanted to bring up the fact that you said, I think you mentioned 77% of all the energy in Louisiana is industrial, is that correct? Typically 80% of that subset is for manufacturing, right? And so that's why I always want to bring things back to waste, and I wanted to hear your perspective on the ways in which our throwaway system, in which 2% of what we consume in this city is getting recycled, and 98% of it gets just straight to the landfill. These materials are the drivers of this energy, particularly of the usage, the manufacturing of the usage in this state. Right? And so when we're not talking about waste from an energy perspective and the wastefulness of a lack of infrastructure, I'm really curious about your perspective on the ways in which waste intersects with these conversations, given that 98% of what we consume, which is cans, which is cardboard, which are the energy-intensive industries, when we're looking at just globally, steel, tin, aluminum, paper manufacturing, food and beverage. These are huge drivers of energy demands, not only in this state, but globally. So if we're just throwing this away without any education or outreach to do that, we're also complicit in this problem. It's not just a home and a roof issue or a contract issue with different utility companies. And I want to hear your perspective now, because we have free money on the line for EPA Swiffer grant, and I want to hear your perspective because our council would rather let us. It is germane. It is entirely germane to this.
No, it's not.
It is entirely germane. We have people who can learn how to recycle and reduce our.
That's your time. Thank you. I have Elizabeth Soychuk. Thank you, Chris. That's your time. Elizabeth, it's someone else's turn to speak.
can't respond to me.
And, who is it?
You're not eligible. You can respond. Come talk to me after. Well, on public record, please.
He's let you know that he will speak to you after. Thank you. I'd like to let Elizabeth speak. That's how it happens. This is how it goes in here. Thank you. Elizabeth, you can.
Hi, I'd like to say welcome Representative McCarran to the Climate and Sustainability Committee. And I'm here as a co-chair of Climate Reality Project Greater New Orleans chapter. And in terms of what's going on with Delta Utilities, you're going to hear me say this a lot probably over your terms, is that one of the solutions to this issue is continued electrification of everything. And I'd like to, in the city of New Orleans and Louisiana, and the more that we electrify, the more we can rely on solar power and wind power. And my personal experience actually just over this winter was we installed a heat pump in the fall because our air conditioning had died. And we wanted to get the federal tax credits. So we installed a heat pump, and our electric bill using that heat pump, we do have a small house. We live in half a shotgun, so we were heating about, say, like 700 square feet. But our experience was that our electric bill was actually less than it was with the gas heat the previous winters. And we actually did have a couple of cold spells this winter. So we saved money and we weren't using gas, and we're trying to electrify our house as soon as possible. I'd like to also mention to Commissioner Lewis, I don't know if he has anything to do with this, but that we were not able to access the IRA monies that came to Louisiana. There's $200 million sitting at the state level. That part of that was supposed to be for individual owners of homes to give rebates on their heat pumps, and that has not.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Lewis, for being here. And I appreciate, I know Razan came and read a letter to you at your last PSC meeting about Delta Utilities. So we appreciate you doing that audit on their billing once, we have a year in. I think this council, this committee, and our utilities committee has a lot of work to do on regulating Delta as our new utility that we're regulating. But we also have opportunities within the Energy Smart program to really look at that this year and see what we can also do to help electrify people's homes and get heat pumps and those sorts of things. So I appreciate your partnership. Like Representative, called you Representative Willard. See, look at that. Councilmember Willard said we are here for you to partner. If you need us in Baton Rouge, let us know, and we'll do the same here. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much. All right, that is the end. I will motion to adjourn. Thank you, everyone. Green seconds, and all in favor. Thank you.